Hello and welcome to 2021. Congratulations on passing 2020. In this video, we're going to talk about how you can pass your TOEFL test in 2021.
Yay!
Okay, so when thinking about passing your TOEFL test, you really have three fundamental questions that you need to ask yourself. The first one is, when will you take your TOEFL test? Are you going to take it next week or next month or in 6 months, etc.? Second question is, what score do you need? So say it's for university entrance, you'll need a particular score, you'll need to find that out. And the third question, which is a little bit more difficult to answer, is what's your current score now? Or if you were to estimate, which is probably not a good idea, what's your current score? Because if you're below the score you need, and you have enough time for preparation, then that's a good thing. But if you're running out of time, etc., you need to be a bit careful. So in this video, we're going to go through each of the different sections of the test, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips, okay? Okay, before we start, there is a downloadable goals PDF, which is for free. So make sure you download that and fill out your goal planner for 2021. Okay, let's start by looking at the reading section. Reading tip number 1, grow your vocabulary. Okay, so this is kind of challenging, but if you have a small vocabulary, you're going to need to build it out, okay? And TOEFL uses academic vocabulary, so some of the words are going to be pretty sophisticated. So how do you grow your vocabulary? Well, you're going to have to read widely, and you're going to have to make a habit of reading across different disciplines as well. So for example, if you think about all the academic disciplines, there's like, earth sciences and technology and health and education, etc. So you want to try and do a little bit of reading across those disciplines to start to build that vocabulary. Fundamentally though, the vocabulary will just be general English vocabulary with a few academic words thrown on top. So those fundamental words are the high frequency word lists, which you can get from e2language.com, like common verbs, common nouns, etc. You need to have a really good breadth of vocabulary there. Reading tip number 2, learn the different TOEFL question types. Okay, so the good thing about TOEFL reading is that the majority of the questions are the multiple choice format, which is cool. However, they differ in their function. They differ in what you have to read for. Take a look at this list here. So you might get a multiple choice question asking you about reference. That is what the pronoun means, or factual information. Is it true? Negative factual information. Which of these is false? Inference. What does the author mean by this? Or rhetorical purpose. Why did the author say this? So you want to become familiar with all of these TOEFL question types because it's going to help you on test day. When you see that question, you'll know, aha, it's asking me to read for something. It's a reading function. Cool? Okay, so let's think about setting some goals for our reading. Remember to download the free goals PDF from the description below. So you might want to set daily goals of reading, say, a Science Daily article every day. These are great because they're divided up into categories, right? They're divided into those academic themes of earth sciences and health and education, etc. So you can read broadly across different topics. And what you might want to do to make sure you understand the thing that you're reading is make a little summary of the paragraph. And you might want to write down some new words and start to build out your vocabulary like this. On a weekly basis, you want to just complete practice questions from e2language.com, and you can attend our live classes as well. Okay, so we've talked about reading. Now let's turn our attention to the listening section and think about things that we can do to help increase our listening scores. Listening tip number 1, get to know the question types just like you did in reading. So as I just mentioned before, there are various listening question types as well, and you want to become familiar with them. They are listening for gist and content, that is the overall meaning. Listening for gist and purpose, like why did she say that? Listening for a particular detail. listening for a function, listening for an attitude or an opinion. How does she feel about that? Listening for an inference. What does she mean by this? Listening for organization, like how is it structured? And listening to connect content. If you go to e2language.com and sign up, you'll get the methods lessons. And what the methods lessons are special video lessons that take you through all of the different question types. We teach you about them in detail, and then we teach you how to answer the questions according to that information. So they're very helpful. Listening tip number 2, improve your note taking. So in TOEFL listening, you're going to listen to something and you won't see the question until after the recording has finished. So while you're listening to that lecture or that interview or whatever it is, you need to take notes so when you do see the questions, you can answer them correctly. So this means you're going to have to improve your note taking if you're not already a good note taker, okay? One of the ways that you can do this is just listen to lectures and actually just write notes as you're going along. And what you need to be able to do is emphasize the listening aspect. That is, you want to listen like 99% and just use 1% to take notes. And those notes will be key words, key phrases, key nouns, key verbs, and possibly key adjectives. This is a good skill to learn. Okay, so let's think about some goals to improve our listening scores. On a daily basis, you want to start listening to podcasts that are in English. You should also do practice activities on E2. On a weekly basis, you want to listen to a podcast and read the transcript. Or if you can find a website like TED.com where you can actually read along while the speaker is speaking, that's extremely helpful. So if you think about listening broadly, like what is listening? It's very strange. You can listen for something. Like you have hearing, which is fine. You don't need to do anything about that. And then you have listening. You're listening for something. In order to comprehend or understand spoken English, you need to understand what spoken English is and how it works, because it is quite different from written English. If you're just used to reading English texts, when you compare what's written with what's spoken, they're actually quite different, because there's all these different elements of spoken English, like connected speech and intonation and pausing, etc. So try to become familiar with spoken English elements as well. Cool, if you're enjoying this video, remember to hit the subscribe button so you can be the first to get our TOEFL YouTube content. But do remember that we only put some of the videos here on YouTube. All of them are over on e2language.com. Okay, let's talk about writing. Writing tip number 1, learn the E2 language writing structures. Okay, so TOEFL has 2 main tasks for writing, the integrated writing and the independent writing. And for both of these, you want to learn structures. Structures are great. They're not templates. You're not memorizing like a partially written essay or something like that. What you're memorizing is the bare bones or a skeleton in which you can use and go into your test and write something and be flexible to cover the criteria. So in the integrated writing task, for example, where you'll be reading something that'll have a few points, then you'll be listening to something that'll have a few counterpoints, you then need a structure in order to write up your contrastive summary. This is all available on E2 Language. It's the same thing with the independent writing, which is practically an essay. You want to know how to structure up your introductory paragraph, your body paragraphs, and your conclusion. So these structures at the paragraph level and at the essay level are really important. Writing tip number 2, improve your grammar. Okay, this is a bit of an ask, but if your grammar is not quite right, if it's a little bit inaccurate, if your verb tenses are a little bit funky, and perhaps you forget to put the S on the plural nouns, then you're gonna have to start tidying that stuff up. It's pretty tricky to learn grammar. I personally think you probably need some explicit grammar lessons. And if you need that, you can check out e2school.com. There is a free grammar course there, and it will help you to understand all of the complexities of English grammar. But also, when you're reading, just start paying attention to the verb tenses and to why is that noun a plural noun and why is this noun not a plural noun, for example. Okay, let's set some writing goals. So on a daily basis, you might want to study grammar review on e2school.com, which is free. And also just pay attention to grammar. On a weekly basis, you might want to attend or watch our E2 language live classes. Okay, so we just looked at writing. Now let's look at speaking. Okay, so speaking tip number 1, understand what speaking is. Okay, so I briefly mentioned this before because understanding what speaking is or what it's made of will help you with your listening skills, which is cool, but you also want to just become a better speaker, okay? So how do you do that and what is speaking? Well, speaking consists of the sounds that you make, and these could be the consonants like p, k, d, f, m, for example. You need to find out which consonant sounds you struggle with because of your first language. Maybe your first language doesn't have these sounds. Then you've got the vowel sounds like a, e, what? A, e, o, for example. Same thing. Which of these vowel sounds are not in your first language and as such you struggle with them? You've got consonant clusters when you've got more than one consonant that comes together, like cr or pr or sl, for example. You might want to practice saying words that have a particular consonant cluster that you struggle with. But aside from the sounds of the language, which is important, extremely important, you also need to think about the different aspects of spoken English like connected speech. That is, how you connect words together when you're speaking, or how native English speakers do that. Or pausing, or intonation, how things rise and fall according to the meaning that you're conveying. So there's all these different aspects of spoken English which are critical. What we'll do is we're going to make a link to the videos below to our speaking science videos where we actually go through some of these ingredients of good spoken English. Speaking tip number 2, use the E2 language structures. So just like writing, you know how you have a structure for an essay or your integrated writing, for example, you also need structures for the speaking test as well. And you want to become familiar with these structures well before test day. So as you probably know, TOEFL has various speaking tasks, including the personal choice speaking task, which is independent. You're not reading or listening to something before it. Then you have 3 integrated speaking tasks where you summarize an announcement or an opinion, summarize a reading and lecture, and summarize a lecture. So for each of these, you want to bring with you into the exam a sort of idea of how you're going to structure up each of those tasks. All of that is available in the methods lessons on e2language.com. So let's set some speaking goals on a daily basis. I think a really good practice is to read aloud. Just read aloud in bed or in the morning. It's up to you. Just get the mouth moving. Don't make it just purely mental. Make it physical as well. Also, you might want to check out Speaking Lab on e2school.com, which is our pronunciation course. As a weekly exercise, you should join our live speaking classes. Cool, so we've just gone through a number of different tips and hopefully you've written down some goals so you can project out and work forward towards your goal. So actually, let me know what your goal is. Into the comments below, please pop in when your test date is or when you expect to take your test, what score you need, and what score do you think you are now, or where is your weak area? It's good to become conscious of that. Anyway, thanks for watching. My name is Jay. Hopefully I'll see you soon.